Hey everyone, the DCS World F-16 Early Access module is good. Well, for me it's actually just okay. It has some glaring issues and missing some basic features that I feel should have been in there in the initial release. Given what I've read from the community over the past couple days, some of you might think I'm beating a dead horse here. However, before you thumbs down this video, hear me out. For the F-16, I didn't buy into the whole pre-release this time. My thought was to hold off and wait until I saw a concrete list of what was going to be included in the module. For me, buying into an ever-growing list of unfinished modules is getting old. I felt like I wanted to wait and see what we were going to get on release day first. After seeing the list, once it was posted on forums, I still didn't bite. Something didn't sit right for me. So I decided to turn things around this time. I was going to let others buy it and wait for them to tell me if it was good. So when it launched into early access on October 3rd, I asked around and wow, the feedback was either it was horrible or it's early access, calm down. But what does early access really mean? This probably a different definition for you and me and maybe others, but for me, early access means that we're getting a decrease in quantity of features, but it shouldn't mean a decrease in quality. Early access to me means that there are a basic set of features required to do most of the common things in DCS World, and an extra set of features like weapons and advanced systems that are held up until later dates during the early access period. Needless to say, I was intrigued by the polarizing opinion, and against my better judgment, I said, screw it. I'm gonna pick it up and see what the fuss is about. So first, typical, set up the bindings, take it out for a simple flight, takeoff, landing, you know, the basics. And once I was comfortable, I decided to step it up a notch and jumped right into some dogfighting. Now, dogfighting doesn't need very many systems to work, and it will let me adjust to the flight model and hopefully get a few guns kills while I'm at it. So I jumped into the server with some friends, and the first thing they tell me is, let me know when I get hits on you. Wait, what hits? What? Yeah. Let me know when I get hits on you, because there is no damage model, and you can only die if I snipe your pilot. So basically, not only did I have to pay attention to what I was doing, but I also had to listen or look for hits on my own plane. Not at all what I expected. And then I noticed there was no radar gun sight. So for the rest of the night, I jumped back and forth between the F-16 and the F-18, hoping that I would just get used to the frustrations of not being able to do something as simple as dogfighting, and every time I jumped in the F-16, I immediately got frustrated and switched back to something else. Now, I know not everyone likes dogfighting. Some of you like BVR, air-to-ground, aerobatics, but this is typically what I do because there isn't really much required to do it. A flight model, engines, and a working gun sight. Whereas BVR and air-to-ground typically requires more features to be implemented. After the dogfighting was over, I decided to go check out what other features that I considered basic were missing. External textures? Not complete. External lights? Nope, guess we're not doing any night missions. Okay, but we can surely jump onto a server like Georgia at War and plan an extended mission, can't we? Well, not really, because we can't put in our waypoints, we can't jettison our stores, and we can only do aerial refueling if we're on the Caucasus map. Oh, and let's not forget, we're pretty much invincible unless our pilot dies. So I guess we aren't going to be playing the F-16 on any PvP servers either, because who wants to deal with that mess? The last thing I wanted to do was maybe fly around and understand the flight model a little bit more and see what we can do max performance-wise to the aircraft, based on some documentation. But when I went to go do that, I was getting frustrated again, because DCS doesn't, in my opinion, handle the G effect properly. I mean, fighter pilots are trained to handle 9G or more. Obviously, there's fatigue, and you have to G warm up and whatever, but in DCS, you black out between 8 and 9 Gs in a matter of seconds, so that was pretty much off the table. So when we go back and look at the post about what was coming into early access, it listed a lot of really cool things, because most of it was coming from the F-18. And given that the F-18 had a lot of what I'm going to call basic features, like working radios, a decent flight model, working damage model, complete set of liveries, I instantly assumed that this is how the F-16 would be on launch. But if we do a rough comparison of what we got at launch of the last 3 jet modules, it's extremely obvious where the F-16 went wrong. But the problem is, without these basic features, you enter a territory called negative training. This is where you learn how to do something in a way that was not intended to be done because pieces of the implementation are currently missing. This doesn't apply just to aviation or game simulation. This applies to software development in general. Without a good development roadmap, there's no way to minimize the negative training. But also you can end up with something called scope creep or feature creep, which is when you constantly add features you may not necessarily need before a deadline. Now, I'm not implying that Eagle Dynamics didn't sit down and think about the development of this aircraft. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't really know. But I am a software engineer of 16 plus years now, and I've seen my fair share of projects that suffer from both scope creep and negative training. Look, let's get constructive here. So my first impressions were not what I expected, and maybe I'm spoiled from other releases. I don't know. I mean, all of the things we just talked about worked on the F-18 and the F-14 when they were released into early access, but the F-16 really has a way to go. And I can't help but think, what if this were a third-party company? Would Eagle Dynamics really allow this to go through their approval process? I can't imagine they would. And I currently feel like they should follow whatever unspoken standard exists for third parties and apply it to their own releases. I really doubt that this would have ever been approved had it been any other company. I'm sure a lot of this will be resolved quickly, and quite possibly by the time you watch this video, or in the coming weeks or months. But personally, I wish they would have released it with all of the basics in place, and not how they did. There's a famous quote by Shigeru Miyamoto that touches on this kind of stuff for me. A delayed game is eventually good. A bad game is bad forever. Now, DCS isn't going to be a bad game from this, but this kind of stuff tends to tarnish a reputation. Nick Gray, one of the founders of Eagle Dynamics, recently made a post to the community about early access, and in part of the discussion on Hogget, he made mention to the fact that they wouldn't be profitable as a company if they didn't do early access. This unfortunately is the game world we live in. Everyone does it, there are a lot of people that like it, and it's unlikely to change for that very reason. But if you constantly put out early access modules or titles that leave a bad taste in people's mouths, you're going to tarnish your reputation. And without a reputation, you will have less people buying into your early access program, and now you will need to find a new way to profit. I don't think this single incident alone will destroy ED. In fact, I definitely don't want it to. Let's face it, Eagle Dynamics is the only company making study-level simulation content at this level, and I truly want them to continue. What I would really like to see is a definitive set of basics defined as to what an acceptable early access release is. What basic set of components must exist before early access sign-off on either their own or third-party content. This would make me a lot happier as a customer and set some clear expectations as to what to expect at a minimum from a new module. These points aren't here to strike controversy, although I'm sure a few of you are going to light me up in the comments below. But hey, everyone gets an opinion. And like assholes, you get one too. Well, no wait, hold on. Is it everyone's like an asshole? No, okay, never mind. Hopefully you know what I mean. Here's to making Eagle Dynamics and the F-16 great again. Thank you guys for watching.